여기 지금 쇼라인 그 투어 보트를 타러 왔는데 2시 15분 티켓이거든요. 지금 1시 10분인데 타도 되냐고 물어봤더니 안 된대요. 2시에 오래요. 그리고 바로 앞에 있는 애플 스토어에 사람들이 이렇게 많이 있습니다. 여기서 기다리고 있고요. 시카고 다운타운이 드디어 쇼라인 사이트싱 보트에 탔습니다. sorry. 여기가 요 문화를 타고 그렇게 도는 것 같아요. 근데 여기 시카고가 의외로 빌딩들이 상당히 보기가 좋아요. 그래서 저 앞에 저게 트럼프 빌딩이네. 트럼프 빌딩. 사람들
Skyline view, the end of the tour. It's a perfect moment to reflect on everything you've learned and also, of course, take some gorgeous photos of the most beautiful city in the world. Now I want to start things off with a few questions. By show of hands, do I have anyone on the boat who's visiting Chicago for the first time ever? Woo! Quite a few of you. Welcome to Chicago. Are you having fun so far? Okay, I'm hearing a few yeses. I'm seeing some hands. Hopefully we'll change that. We'll hear some woos at the end of this tour, but don't worry, no pressure. This is my favorite city in the world, but I'm a little biased. Do I have any returning visitors on this boat? Returning visitors? Quite a few of you as well. Welcome back. You fell in love, you couldn't get enough. Now, do I have any locals on this boat? Chicago locals, by show of hands. A small but mighty crowd. Welcome home. I cannot wait to teach you your new favorite fun fact about this city. I hope to teach you something new, something you didn't know. Now we're going to be taking off in just... We're going to start things off in front of us with a clock tower on top. The Wrigley Building is 101 years old, completed in May of 1924. If you've ever Googled Chicago, you've probably seen a picture of the Wrigley Building. William Wrigley Jr., the founder of Wrigley Chewing Gum, needed a headquarters for his company, and he selected this lot right next to the Chicago River and hired an architecture firm called Graham Anderson Crooks and Whites. They designed a lot of buildings we're going to see today. Now, this style we call Spanish Revival. The clock tower on top, along with the beautiful Spanish finials, these little orb-like shapes on the top of the building itself, these are actually inspired by the Giralda Tower, which sits atop the Sevilla Cathedral in Spain, so that's where that name comes from, Spanish Revival, reviving classic Spanish architecture. The building itself is covered in 6 different shades of light terracotta tiles. Now, they're on a gradient, getting lighter as you reach the clock tower, drawing your eye upwards towards that beautiful clock tower itself. These tiles are very delicate. In fact, they have to be hand polished several times per year. Very, very fragile. Quick shout out to the Apple Store, to our right. Not for the architecture, but for the significance of this location. This is where DuSable, the first non-native permanent resident, had his home and trading post. Now, this bridge in front of us is named after him, the Michigan Avenue DuSable Bridge from 1920 by Edward Bennett, a very important man whom we'll talk about a little later on. But after we pass under this bridge, you will see the second tallest building in Chicago, Trump International Hotel and Tower, which stands at 1,388 feet, or 423 meters, but its measurement actually includes the skinny spire on top, which adds an additional 217 feet to the building's height, making it the second tallest building in Chicago, when its roof actually sits below the third. Now, speaking of height, architect Adrian Smith noticed historically significant buildings are surrounding this one, and he wanted to try to match those buildings. So if you look up, you'll see this setback This space where the building's getting skinnier as you reach the top matches the height of the Wrigley building minus the clock tower. This is an aspect of design that we call contextualism. It means fitting in within the context of your surroundings. Now over here, the Jewelers Building, Beaux-Arts style, which translates to fine arts in French. Borrowing from classic Greek and Roman styles of the past, the building is covered in ornamentation. It has a beautiful dome on top and 4 skinny towers called tempietos. They actually used to hold the Jewelers Building's fire suppression system. We got this building in 1927, and it's across the river from its opposite, AMA Plaza, this black building with large windows. It's from 1972. It's a style we call black box modernism, and even though we only get a brief glimpse of this building, you will see this style everywhere. Architect Ludwig Mies van der Rohe, he actually created and popularized this style, and Mies van der Rohe led the Bauhaus in Germany and then moved to Chicago during World War II. He had a lot of students of architecture. One of those students was Bertrand Goldberg, who designed Marina City. Known for its 2 beautiful circular towers, there are actually 5 buildings within Marina City. It's a miniature city within a city. Every amenity that you could possibly imagine exists, or existed at least, in Marina City. When it opened in the 1960s, there was an ice skating rink. It's no longer here, but there's still a bowling alley, fine dining space, valet parking, a marina to dock your boat, and a theater, which we call the House of Blues today. Now, this city within a city was Bertrand Goldberg's attempt to draw middle-class families downtown Chicago after a lot of them had moved out to the suburbs in the 1960s. Now, the shape of these 2 towers is supposed to look like 2 sunflowers side by side when viewed from above. Now, what this means is the condos inside are actually shaped like pizza slices, getting skinnier towards the entrance, an interior designer's dream. But nonetheless, Goldberg was inspired by nature. See, he argued that right angles rarely appear in nature, so he opted to use more curves instead. Now hopping over here, you'll see a triangle on top, a 77 West Rocker. That triangle, that's actually modeled after a Greek pediment, classic Greek architecture. Ricardo Bofill wanted to blend the old and the new, so he covered the building in reflective glass, using this white Portuguese granite to frame the glass, borrowed from Greek styles of the past, and blended everything together. So you have elements that are new, like this reflective glass, with old elements, everything is blended together, a gorgeous blend of different themes. This is postmodernism from 1992. Now, coming up on our left-hand side, this is the official Chicago River Walk, which is 1.3 miles long, officially completed 2016, and this is my favorite spot. If you've ever dreamed of being a star, now's your chance. This is the River Theater, and they are the audience. We are the show. So, give them a wave. Woo! Oh, they love us. Wow. They're obsessed with us. Well, you know, that's show business, baby. We'll get them on the way back, don't you worry. But if you have time today, please explore this beautiful river walk. I know some of you are running the Chicago Marathon tomorrow, but you know, you can hop in, walk a little bit, hop back out. Don't tire yourself out too much. It's 1.3 miles long in total. Could be a good recovery run option for one day, right? Now on our left-hand side, look up. This is the Builders Building with ionic columns on top and beautiful ornamentation between each of the windows from 1927 by Graham Anderson Coates and White. This is more the Beaux-Arts style. Again, this translates to fine arts in French. There used to be a decorative strip on top, but it was removed when the addition was added in 1986. So these 2 sections are just about 60 years apart. That cornice, that decorative strip was removed to create a flow of the old to the new. Now, speaking of the old, 100 years ago, There was a style called Art Deco that was becoming very, very popular in the roaring 20s. And this is a perfect introduction to Art Deco. It's the Merchandise Mart, a massive building spanning across 2.5 city blocks. Art Deco as a style actually borrowed from Aztec and Egyptian styles of the past. Known for their geometric shapes and metallic accents, you will see bronze diamonds surrounded by little zigzags called chevrons, which create this illusion of movement, maybe reminding you of assembly lines in a factory. I mean, we had just experienced the second industrial revolution. People were looking forward to the future. And you'll also see with Art Deco deeply set windows separated by spandrels that carve out vertical stripes toward the sky, reminding us that people, they were embracing the skyscraper, looking up and looking forward to the future, blissfully unaware of what was to come in 1929. But we'll talk about that depressing story later. For now, this is Wolf Point, our contemporary skyscraper trophy case. On our left side is the new Wien building, 1983. That's where Ferris Bueller's dad worked, and Ferris Bueller's Day Off, fun fact. The curve of the building is meant to imitate the curve of the Chicago River. Blue and green glass alternate to reflect the color of the sky and the color of the river below. This is more of that element of design we call contextualism. The building is fitting in within the context of its surroundings. Now in front of us, if you look up, you'll see an arch towards the sky. There's actually an arch at the base as well. This is River Point 2017. Now, we call this our contemporary skyscraper trophy case for a reason. Everything draws your eye because each building has a very distinct shape. Now, River Point's arch is structural. It's also acts as a rain gutter, and it also is aesthetically complementing the beautiful Riverside Plaza out front. In total, that's 1.5 acres of outdoor space. Now, this is required space. In fact, buildings that are built next to the river have to be set back from the river's edge at street level to allow for a publicly accessible river walk space. This plan dates back to 1998. It's been updated several times, but nonetheless, it gives us the gift of interacting with the Chicago River. On our walk to work, now in front of us, this is the Kinzie Street Railroad Bridge. This bridge is always elevated. It's no longer in use. It's from 1908. It's a bascule bridge. Bascule means seesaw in French. Two sides of the seesaw are the concrete counterweight and the leaf of the bridge itself, both of which individually weigh around 2,000 tons. Using electric motors, we can lower and raise our bridges, and we have 37 movable bridges in Chicago. Now, it's actually bridge lift season today. Did anyone see the bridges lifting? Couple of you? Sailboats can't fit under these bridges. They actually come back from their docks on Lake Michigan and head through the river for winter storage. And bridge lifts happen on Wednesdays and Saturdays around 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. But on our left-hand side, this is the Fulton House from 1898. It was a meat freezer. Now it's residential. People live here, haunted by the ghosts of animals from the past. And my favorite architect, Harry Weese, renovated the Fulton House. It actually had to defrost for 6 months in 1981. It was an old meat freezer. Now, all of that patience paid off for Harry Weese because he got the lot next door and he designed the river cottages, postmodern with a nautical flair. These are shaped like triangles or sails on a sailboat, with circular windows that look like portholes and balcony space, giving you that true Chicago River experience. We got these in the 1980s, and the river actually did not smell very good at the time. Now it's been cleaned up a lot, especially in the of a publicly accessible riverwalk space in 1929, when that wasn't even required until 1998. Just some perspective for you. Now, this beautiful Art Deco style building has lots of ornamentation under the clocks, between all the windows, borrowing heavily from Aztec and Egyptian styles of the past. It's carved into this gorgeous, polished Indiana limestone. And I must confess, this is my favorite part of the tour because these buildings are actually laid out in chronological order, giving us the unique opportunity to explore the progression of architecture over the years. So we're leaving 1929, when Art Deco was popular, and we're headed to 1961 and 1963. That's when we got Gateway Centers 1 and 2, matching buildings. This style, called Black Box Modernism, was created and popularized by Mies van der Rohe, whom we talked about briefly earlier. Now, he had quite the impact on Chicago because he lived here. He had lots of students of architecture who went on to be part of Skidmore, Owings, and Merrill, who designed all 4 of the Gateway Centers we're about to see. And when we analyze the gap between 1929 and the 1950s, when we saw the rise of modernism, everything makes a lot of sense. You see the stock market crash and plunged America into the Great Depression, 1929, and then World War II happened, and there were not a lot of resources, nor was there time for new buildings. By the time architects got back to the drawing board, the public craved something completely different. Gone were the expensive metallic accents of Art Deco, and what arrived was this simple style with clean lines, simple geometric shapes, and black box modernism takes that simplicity one step further. With exposed structural steel that's set almost flush with these large windows, which gives this illusion that it's a very thin panel you're looking at. The building almost looks weightless. But that's heavy, that's structural steel. It's a beautiful illusion, and modernism almost becomes poetic when you understand that it was representative of what people needed, what they craved. Reliability, simplicity. They didn't want to slap as many gargoyles as they could onto a building, right? And that simplicity, they carried through into the 1970s. This is 1971, Gateway Center 3. International style was a close cousin of modernism, introduced in 1932 as a way to unify the world of architecture. Became so popular, you could pop Gateway Center 3 in almost any major city. Chances are, there'd be another building that looks just like it. But in the 1980s, architects started to break out of the mold, opting to use interesting shapes and themes with postmodern designs. We even see some asymmetrical buildings. This is one of them, Gateway Center 4, which actually curves with the curve of the Chicago River. So even though it's asymmetrical, it harmoniously blends into its environment. Contextualism, an element of design that rose to prominence in the 1980s, we still see it today in contemporary designs. So you just travel through just about 100 years of architecture history. If you're feeling lost, quick, look to your left. Here's a map of the Chicago River. That red dot is a "You Are Here" dot. There's 300 South Wacker. Now why is this building here? Or why is this map here, I should say? Well, this building was left out of the Guide to Chicago, written by the American Institute of Architects. It's 550 pages long. That must have hurt when they were left out. So they hired a design firm from New York City to literally put themselves on the map. And now, they're still not mentioned in the Guide to Chicago. But they're mentioned on the Shoreline Sightseeing 75-minute Architecture River Cruise! Woo! A consolation prize. Now over here, this is the Old Main Post Office. Art Deco, although a little bit more understated than some of the Art Deco buildings we've seen so far. You'll see some geometric shapes, you'll see some chevrons if you look really close, but either way, this building spans across 2 city blocks. It's massive. Graham Anderson, Probst, and White designed it, and it was officially completed in 1932. They could process 500,000 stacks of packages per day if they needed to. They were incredibly efficient, and they needed to be, because Chicago was the mail order catalog capital of the world. We had Sears, Marshall Field and Company here, lots of outgoing mail. Nonetheless, take one last look after we pass under this bridge. If you're a fan of Batman, you may have seen this was actually featured in The Dark Knight. This was the Gotham City Bank. This building closed in 1996 and was vacant until 2019. So, a silver lining to the vacancy, the Old Main Post Office got to be robbed in The Dark Knight. Now, Today it's an office building, renovated 2019 for companies like Uber Freight, Walgreens, and Pepsi. We're going to continue down the south branch of the river. These buildings will get shorter and shorter, and we'll talk about them on our way up the south branch. But for now, we're switching gears. I have some stories to tell about Chicago's tumultuous past. This is a city that had to recover from some pretty crazy stuff. I always say Chicago is tenacious, meaning Chicago never gave up. But let's flash back. Has anyone heard the story of the Great Chicago Fire before? Seeing a few hands. Now, the Great Chicago Fire of 1871 actually started about 3 blocks to our right. There was an Irish Catholic neighborhood where the homes were built out of wood. In the same location today, Chicago has a fire station, but it's a little too late. Nonetheless, I'll set the scene for you. October 8th, 1871. It's hot, it's windy, and it's dry. A woman named Catherine O'Leary is sleeping in her bed in this neighborhood when around 9 p.m., Catherine O'Leary hears her husband scream, "The barn is on fire." So Catherine runs outside. She sees her barn engulfed in flames. These flames are spreading to her neighbors' homes, and people are waking up. They're gathering around. They're waiting for the fire department to show up. Little do they know, miles away, the fire watchman has sent the fire department to the wrong location, causing a 45-minute delay in their arrival, giving this fire plenty of time to take down these wooden homes, and it's heading towards where we are right now. Oh, whoo! Opposite vibes happening over here. I don't like it. This fire is heading towards the river. Unfortunately, this river, it was covered in a thick layer of grease and pollution at the time. Fuel. So the fire hops across the river. What's waiting on the other side are stores of lumber and grain. Fire's favorite snack. It continues to spread north. Walls of flames reach 100 feet, and this fire burns for 30 hours. Early in the morning, October 10th, rain starts to fall, putting out the flames, and people emerge from the rubble. They look around at their city, their home, and it's completely unrecognizable. With 3.3 square miles of damage, 1/3 of the population lost their homes, 300 people lost their lives, and people were devastated. They wanted someone to blame. Now, usually we'd call that person a scapegoat, but Chicago got a scape cow. I'll explain. Unfortunately, for Catherine O'Leary, I'll explain actually, she did not start the Great Chicago Fire. She was sleeping that evening, but people wanted a scapegoat. So a newspaper article came out claiming that Catherine O'Leary, she was inside her barn that evening. She set a lit lantern next to her cow. The cow kicked the lantern over, and they were both responsible. But the authors later admitted that they lied. It didn't matter though, the damage was done. What's crazy is to this day we have no idea who started the Great Chicago Fire. No idea. But we know it wasn't Catherine O'Leary. However, famous paintings were done depicting her starting the Great Chicago Fire. Parody songs were written about her starting the Great Chicago Fire. In fact, one of them you may have heard before. Some call it Mrs. O'Leary's Cow. It became a popular summer camp song in America, and it has been for decades. So children learned the uncorrect version of that story. This poor woman, I feel so bad for her. I wrote my own parody song to clear things up a little bit. And it goes a little something like this. Catherine O'Leary didn't start the fire. It was already burning when she woke up at 9 p.m. Her cow didn't start it either. People still have beef with them. It is not fair. So now you can take that song, thank you, and teach it to your kids, right? And change history for the better. Tell the truth. Now you would think after this devastating event, it would take a long time to get themselves back up on their feet, but Chicagoans are tenacious. Materials arrived on train cars the day after this fire, giving people hope. In fact, this is an old railroad building. Even though it's not from the era that we're talking about, I gotta give a shout out to the Union Station Powerhouse, Art Deco style, Graham Anderson Probst and White. It's actually one of the few remaining buildings. In fact, a lot of them were torn down when Amtrak was formed in 1970. It's in the works to becoming a protected historical landmark. It's important to preserve that history. Now, using those materials, Chicago started to rebuild after the fire, and just 14 years later, Chicago got the world's first skyscraper. 1885, the Home Insurance Building was the world's first steel frame construction too, allowing future architects to build higher and higher. How poetic is that? A city that burned to the ground rose out of the ashes with the future of architecture. This is a city that suffered immensely. They're picking themselves back up on their feet. We had our steel, our meatpacking industries drawing in lots of people. The population was growing. People arrived on train cars. We were becoming a major railroad center. And Chicago was connected with its waterways too. So, just 22 years after the Great Chicago Fire, Chicago got an opportunity to show off. They hosted the World's Fair of 1893. Down in Jackson Park, a wide open space. Room for a lot of people and a lot of buildings. 12 buildings designed by the iconic Daniel Burnham. He was known for his hate brutalism. You'll love this. Look for a skinny golden tower on our right side. That's real 24-karat gold. On top of the Carbide and Carbon building from 1929. Now, why would you use real gold? Well, the Carbide and Carbon Dry Cell Battery Company went back and forth with the architects, the Burnham brothers, the son of Daniel Burnham, on whether to use bronze or gold, and they settled on gold as a way to develop trust with their customer base. So they were doing very well. That's gold leaf, so it's only 1/5000th of an inch thick, but it gives that massive illusion of wealth at least. Now the building looks like a giant champagne bottle due to the gold on top and dark green facade. And in fact, that was no coincidence. It opened during Prohibition, and the Carbide and Carbon building was actually seen as a cheeky protest to Prohibition itself, a time when alcohol was illegal in America. Chicago got a giant champagne bottle right in the middle of the city. Now over here, we've got Mather Tower from 1928, borrowing from Gothic styles of the past. Beautiful neo-Gothic design with a cupola on top or a dome that doesn't match the rest of the terracotta because terracotta is fragile and chunks of it started falling from Mather Tower stone in 1990, and the entire thing was removed and replaced for safety reasons. It's now painted aluminum instead. Now the building next to it is the London House Hotel. There's a rooftop bar at the top there where it says London House. You can see some people up there. It's going to be chilly. The views are pretty nice. Lots of historically significant buildings in the area. And the London House Hotel is actually one of them. The original site's from 1923, called the London Guarantee Building originally. Look up and you'll see Corinthian columns. Look above that, you see a gorgeous cupola, and underneath that, lots of different motifs borrowing from Greek and Roman styles of the past. Baroque style. Over here is the Tribune Tower, one of my favorite buildings, with the American flag on top. This is actually modeled after the Rouen Cathedral in France, the French Gothic Revival style. It's from 1925. The building behind it, I always get questions on, with the dome on top. That's the Intercontinental. It's now a hotel, originally built for the Shriners organization. The dome itself is a Moorish-inspired dome. But back to Tribune Tower. You look at these words here, so Chicago Tribune. You'll know this was their headquarters. Chicago Tribune's headquarters. They asked for architects around the world to submit designs for the most beautiful office building in the world, and Howells and Hood from New York City won the competition. There are flying buttresses at the top, those arches up there. If you peek through the Apple Store windows, you will see the fleur-de-lis motif repeats across the building. The ornamentation is so intricate, so beautiful. It's worth walking up Michigan Avenue. I mean, it's right next to our dock, just to admire. And Howells and Hood, they've actually designed one of New York City's most famous buildings, 30 Rockefeller Plaza. Her sister is in Chicago, NBC Tower, modeled after 30 Rock. Adrian Smith wanted to honor Howells and Hood's work, so he added these flying buttresses set at a right angle which are illuminated alongside Tribune Towers flying buttresses every evening, paying homage to the original architects. Quick shout out to the Aon Center and to Prudential Plaza to our right. It's the 4th and 7th tallest buildings in Chicago. Now, the Aon Center, 1970, Edward Burrows Stone designed it. International style, perfect quintessential international style, and then to Prudential Plaza with the spire on top, post-modern style. Now look to the right, you'll see my favorite skyscraper in Chicago, Aqua Tower, with curvy balconies. This is the 12th tallest building in the city at 867 feet, but it's actually, in 2009, it was the tallest building in the world, designed by a woman-led architecture firm. Her name is Jeannie Yang. She's incredible. She's inspired by nature, and all of her work reflects this. So with Aqua Tower, you might think of water, right? I mean, you've got a lovely, gorgeous view of the water, reflected in the glass panels as well. But those curvy balconies are actually a reference to limestone formations, commonly found in Lake Michigan near Lake Michigan. There are 82 curves in Aqua Tower. Each one is unique. Each one has a distinct shape into those curvy balconies. My favorite skyscraper in Chicago, the best one, is actually from Nevada. You sit underneath the building, especially during sunset, you can get some incredible photos. Just the coolest building. And Jeannie Gang is incredible. She breaks her own records because in 2020, she got the title of the tallest building in the world, designed by a woman-led architecture firm again with the St. Regis. And today, the St. Regis is the tallest building in the world, designed by a woman. Pretty cool. It's 1,191 feet tall, 363 meters. It's the 3rd tallest building in Chicago, and the curvy shape of it actually imitates the frustum. It's a shape that occurs naturally in crystal, fluorite, and sapphire. But there are no literal curves in the building at all. Look really closely where each floor meets the one above or below it, and you'll see each floor is set out very slightly, about 6 inches, creating that illusion of a curve with no literal curves whatsoever. Beautiful blue reflective glass, reflecting the color of the sky, but also Lake Michigan nearby, an aspect of contextualism. And then we also got 2 empty floors up there called floating floors. You may notice the wind is picking up here. It's an interesting phenomenon where the warm winds coming from the southwest meet the cold air of Lake Michigan, which sits to the east, and everything starts to swirl. The winds tend to come up, and they can become unpredictable, but those blows in the floors simply allow the wind to pass through, keeping us safe. And over here on our left side, this is 400 North Lakeshore Drive, which is currently under construction, due to be completed 2027. A brand new building. Now, there will be another building next to it. Both of them will be over 700 feet tall. And Skidmore, Owings & Merrill designed the buildings to taper off to 2 points. Waterfall design. Gradual decrease of horizontal space allows for the wind to pass through safely. They tested 3D models of these buildings in their wind tunnels rigorously, making sure they were safe. Now in the distance, that curvy building is Lake Point Tower. It's the only private skyscraper east of Lakeshore Drive. Now, it's not supposed to be there. Our zoning ordinance says no private skyscrapers are allowed east of Lakeshore Drive. However, in the 1960s, it was vague. The wording was not specific enough, and it didn't mention this man-made land here, and it also overlooked the fact there was a parking lot that sat on the spot already. Development scopes, loopholes. Lake Point Tower went up in 1968, and later those loopholes were closed, meaning this will be the only private skyscraper east of Lakeshore Drive forever, as long as that zoning ordinance doesn't get changed. So you'll never have a neighbor blocking your view. In fact, Shipwright and Henrik, the architects, designed the building to have a series of curves shaped like a Y to maximize views, maximize sellable condos inside, but they didn't want to sacrifice privacy. You see, if this building was shaped like a U or a W, you'd maximize the number of sellable condos, but people could see into their neighbors' apartments. You could see your neighbor when they get out of the shower. I know, I live in a U-shaped building. So, They designed the building to be shaped like a Y, maximizing views on every side. Everyone has a view of the water, some have a view of the city. Lots of people have a view of Navy Pier, too. On our left side, Navy Pier actually opened in 1916 as Municipal Pier 2, an optimistic name because we only got one. It was supposed to be used recreationally, but it ended up being used as a military training base for World Wars I and II. Finally renovated in the 1990s, renamed Navy Pier to honor the Navy, there are tons of amenities, not just the Ferris wheel. There's a children's museum, a Shakespeare theater, most importantly, there's a Margaritaville. It's 5 o'clock somewhere, baby. And we are about to have the most stunning view. Captain John is starting the boat, so you can have a view on one side of the Chicago skyline. On the other, over here, we've got, let's see, some sailboats. Yes, sailboats out on Lake Michigan. This is the Marine Safety Center, and that's the Chicago Harbor Lot, the second busiest recreational cruise port in the U.S. So, views on every side. I'm going to hop off the mic. Enjoy this. We're going to be heading towards the dock in just a couple minutes, and I'll have a story about this river and this land, and what was here before Chicago.